It was a sun-drenched Sunday afternoon in Green Haven Glades, the kind where the birds chirped just loud enough to drown out the hum of suburban life. And Sam Miller, was sprawled in my hammock, lemonade in hand, savoring the slightly wild sprawl of my privet hedges. To me, they were perfect, overgrown enough to feel alive, offering privacy, shade, and a sanctuary for the local birds. But perfection, I'd soon learn, is a loaded word around here. Green Haven Glades promised natural splendor with its name, but the reality was a grid of beige houses, manicured lawns, and an HOA rulebook that could double as a doorstop. I'd always flown under their radar, content with my little patch of chaos, until Mr. Prickly, yes, that's his real name, marched up with a clipboard and a sneer. "Mr. Miller," he barked, his mustache quivering with disdain as he eyed my hedges, "these are in violation of community guidelines, too tall, too unruly, a blight on our uniform aesthetic." I climbed out of the hammock, a sinking feeling settling in, and tried to play dumb. "Violation? How so?" He rattled off some nonsense about blocking sunlight from Hortense Heitwer's pristine yard across the street, then cited Section 4, Paragraph C, Subclause 7. Hedges capped at 4 feet, neatly trimmed, no exceptions. I pointed out the obvious privacy, the bird nests, the lack of any real rule breaking, but Prickly wasn't there to debate. "Birds nesting in unruly hedges are precisely the problem," he snapped, nose wrinkled like I'd offered him spoiled milk. He slapped a warning notice in my hand, 2 weeks to comply, then strutted off, clipboard raised like a victory flag. I stared at the paper, my zen evaporating. This wasn't about hedges. It was about control, and I wasn't about to let some petty bureaucrat dictate my yard. The HOA meeting a few days later only fanned the flames. Held in a beige purgatory called the Community Room, it was a parade of pinched faces and power trips led by Hortense Heitwer herself, HOA president, queen of order, and my new nemesis. She sat at the head of the table, gray suit crisp, bun tight, radiating disapproval. "Mr. Miller," she began, her voice slicing through the room, "your hedges are eyesores, unneighborly, a blatant disregard for our standards." I kept my cool. "They're healthy, Hortense, privacy, wildlife, a bit of beauty." She scoffed. "They attract pests, squirrels, birds, who knows what else, and lower property values." The board squirmed. Some had hedges of their own, I'd noticed, but Hortense was a steamroller. "They're uncivilized," she hissed, proposing a new rule to tighten the screws further. I pointed out again that no rules were broken yet, but she slammed her gavel, ending the discussion with a venomous, "The hedges must be trimmed, you've been warned." My blood simmered as I left, the gauntlet thrown. Then came the official notice, cream paper HOA logo, legalese demanding 3-foot hedges, 3 feet. By a 2-week deadline or face fines and forced landscaping. My 6-foot green wall would be butchered, and for what? Hortense's ego. I muttered to myself, packing my living room, 3 feet. What's next? Counting leaves? I wasn't caving, not to her, not to this tyranny. I needed a plan, something to obey the letter of their law while flipping its spirit right in their faces. That's when it hit me. A giant, glorious middle finger sculpted from my hedges, aimed straight at Hortense's house. It was absurd, it was perfect, and it was on. The idea of a middle finger hedge wasn't just a fleeting spark. It was a wildfire, consuming my every thought with gleeful defiance. Sam Miller wasn't about to let Hortense Heitwer and her HOA drones grind my spirit or my hedges into beige submission. The notice demanded 3-foot hedges, neatly trimmed, no irregularities, but it didn't dictate shape. A slow, wicked grin spread across my face as I reread it, the loophole glaring like a neon sign. I'd comply technically, trim the hedges, lower the overall height, but I'd sculpt them into something so bold, so unmistakable, that Hortense would choke on her own rulebook. A giant middle finger, as tall and detailed as possible, pointed right at her pristine, hedge-free fortress across the street. It'd be a masterpiece of rebellion, a leafy screw you to her sterile vision of Green Haven Glades. I laughed out loud, alone in my living room, picturing her apoplectic meltdown, the throbbing vein in her forehead, the inevitable shrieks. This wasn't just about hedges anymore. It was about freedom, principle, and a little suburban anarchy. Execution was the next hurdle. I needed more than a pair of clippers and a grudge. I needed an artist, a topiary wizard who'd see the genius in my madness. Enter Edward, a landscaper I found online whose portfolio boasted everything from boxwood Eiffel Towers to intricate animal shapes. If anyone could pull this off, it was him. I sketched my vision in meticulous detail, every curve, every angle, the finger towering over a trimmed base, and called him over. "So let me get this straight," Edward said, peering at my drawing, his voice tinged with disbelief. "You want me to trim your hedges into this? A giant middle finger as big and detailed as possible aimed at that house." He pointed across the street to Hortense's domain. "Dead serious," I replied, nodding with fervor. "I've got an HOA situation, and this is my answer." He stared, then burst into laughter, a grin splitting his face. "Mr. Miller, I love it. This'll be the most epic hedge sculpture I've ever done. But are you sure it's direct?" "Direct is the point," I said. "Unmistakable, unforgettable, the most glorious, defiant middle finger hedge ever." Edward arrived the next day, a one-man arsenal of rebellion, electric shears, hand clippers, scaffolding, even a level for precision. He surveyed my overgrown privet with a craftsman's eye, mischief glinting in his gaze. "This is gonna be fun," he said, and the transformation began. It was slow, deliberate, mesmerizing, like watching a sculptor chip away at marble, except this was privet, and the endgame was pure insolence. He started at the base, shearing it down to the mandated 3 feet, then carved upward, shaping the finger with surgical care. Neighbors trickled out, drawn by the buzz of shears and the emerging form, shock, amusement, and muffled laughter rippling through the crowd. A few snapped photos. I could feel it brewing into local legend. "Take that, Hortense," I muttered under my breath as the shape sharpened, imagining her perfectly coiffed hair standing on end. Mr. Prickly made a cameo, clipboard in hand, his pinched face twisting into horrified confusion. "What is this?" he stammered. "Topiary, Mr. Prickly," I deadpanned. "Trimming my hedges per HOA request, a work in progress, a tribute to modern art." He sputtered, mumbled about consulting the board, and fled, defeated. The Green Haven salute, as I dubbed it, was rising, and I was winning leaf by glorious leaf. The Green Haven salute took shape over days of Edward's meticulous snipping, each cut a stroke of genius turning my unruly privet into a towering symbol of defiance. By the time he stepped back to admire his work, it was done. A giant, leafy middle finger, soaring above the 3-foot base, its contours crisp and unmistakable, aimed like a cannon at Hortense Hightower's sterile kingdom across the street. I stood in my yard, arms crossed, basking in its absurd glory. It was everything I'd dreamed, bold, detailed, a topiary taunt that screamed rebellion while technically bowing to the HOA's height edict. The neighborhood buzzed, kids giggled from the sidewalk, adults gawked from lawns, phones flashing as the hedge cemented its status as a suburban spectacle. My internal monologue ran wild with triumph. "Enjoy your uniform aesthetic now, Hortense." I could already see her fuming, her gray suit rumpled in rage, and it felt like victory tasted with lemonade on a Sunday afternoon. Hortense's reaction didn't disappoint. She stormed over that evening, heels clicking like war drums, her face a mask of purple outrage that rivaled an overripe eggplant. "What have you done?" she bellowed, her voice shattering the quiet street. I emerged from behind the hedge, shears in hand, wearing my I Break for Topiary t-shirt, all calm and smug. "Good evening, Hortense, admiring my hedge trimming." She pointed a trembling finger at the salute. "This is obscene," a giant hand flipping everyone off. "I trimmed my hedges, Hortense," I corrected, straight-faced. "Per your demand, overall heights reduced, though some parts," I added with a grin, "might be a bit taller." "You did this on purpose, you maniac," she shrieked. I shrugged. "Just exercising my artistic license. I call it the Green Haven salute, bold, expressive, a statement." She sputtered. "It's a disgrace, offensive, think of the children." I nodded toward the giggling kids nearby. "They seem to like it." "Frankly, it's an improvement over your standards." Defeated for words, she choked out. "I'll have it removed, I'll sue." "You'll do nothing," I said firmly. "I've followed the rules, now excuse me, I've got art to admire." I turned back to the hedge, leaving her deflated on my lawn. The emergency HOA meeting that followed was a circus of chaos. Hortense, looking haggard, led the charge with evangelical zeal. "This obscene topiary is an affront to Green Haven Glades," she cried, voice quaking. "A safety hazard, an eyesore, it'll corrupt the youth." She'd even dragged in a child psychologist, suspiciously resembling her son in a fake mustache, who droned about the perils of obscene imagery. I took the floor with mock calm. "Hortense thinks I made this to annoy her, and sure, that's a bonus, but I was complying with the trim order." I flashed photos of the hedge, proving the base hit 3 feet, and leaned hard into absurdity. "It's artistic expression, my free speech. a subversive take on suburban conformity. My expert, a buddy who wrote for an obscure art blog, chimed in. Mr. Miller's hedge is a modern topiary masterpiece, bold, comedic, brilliant. The board fractured, Hortense's loyalists clung to her, but others wavered, some stifling grins. Then a landscape architect from the back, a neighbor I'd chatted with mid-trim, stood. It's unique, impressive, hilarious, I love it. That cracked the dam. Facing lawsuits, PR disasters, and Hortense's unraveling grip, the board balked. No new rules, no action, just chaos as she ranted about civilization's fall. I walked out, smug as hell, the hedge still standing tall. The Green Haven salute stood proud, a leafy monolith of rebellion, and Hortense Hightower wasn't about to let it rest. Not without a fight that make a soap opera blush. The HOA meeting's collapse only fueled her obsession. She morphed into a one-woman crusade, hell-bent on erasing my hedge or at least my sanity. First, she hit the city with complaints, zoning violations, safety hazards, public nuisance claims. Hopping bureaucracy would do what the board wouldn't. Inspectors showed up, poked around, measured the hedge, and shrugged. All legal, they said, leaving Hortense fuming on her porch as I waved from mine. Next, she pounded the pavement with a petition, clipboard in hand, preaching her "think of the children" gospel to anyone who'd listen. She wanted signatures to force the hedge's removal, claiming it tanked property values and morals. Most neighbors brushed her off, some slammed doors, others smirked, and my counter-petition praising the hedge as art and spirit outpaced hers 3-1. Her campaign flopped, and the salute grew roots in the community's heart. Not one to quit, Hortense turned to pettier tactics. I caught her on my security cameras planting, "Keep Green Haven Glades" beautiful signs near the hedge, easily yanked out. And one morning I found the finger draped in toilet paper, a sad attempt to soften its edge. I laughed, peeled it off, and decided to up the ante, not with vandalism but flair. I installed spotlights, bathing the salute in a nightly glow that made it a beacon, its defiant silhouette taunting Hortense from her bedroom window. At its base, I added a birdbath with a sign. "Birds welcome, HOA presidents not so much." Then came the viewing platform, a raised deck with chairs and a telescope, perfect for admiring my masterpiece or keeping tabs on her next move. The piece de resistance, Hedge Appreciation Day. I invited the neighborhood, Hortense excluded, decked the yard with balloons, streamers, and a "Long Live the Hedge" banner, and served finger sandwiches for the irony. Neighbors poured in, laughing, snapping pics, toasting the absurdity. The local news crashed the party, filming a segment. "Homeowner versus HOA, the middle finger hedge dividing a neighborhood." It was glorious chaos, and I sold tickets for outsiders to gawk. With every escalation, Hortense unraveled further, her power crumbling, her composure a distant memory. The hedge wasn't just a sculpture anymore. It was a movement, a middle finger to her tyranny that the neighborhood rallied behind. Kids drew it in crayons, adults swapped stories over beers, and even the quiet rebels, folks with their own overgrown hedges, started letting them breathe. I'd catch them nodding at me, a silent thanks for sticking it to her. The salute's glow lit up more than my yard. It lit up Green Haven Glades, exposing the cracks in Hortense's perfect facade. She'd scream from her porch some nights, shaking a fist at the lights, but it only made the victory sweeter. I'd sip my lemonade, rocking in my hammock, and think, this is what winning feels like, not just saving my hedges, but breaking her grip. The cameras caught her tantrums, too, and I had a growing archive of her meltdowns. Insurance, sure, but mostly entertainment. The war wasn't over, but I was ahead, and the hedge stood taller than ever, a green testament to defiance that outlasted her petty reign. Sam Miller, accidental topiary rebel, was rewriting the rules, one snip at a time. The hedge war escalated into a surreal standoff, with the Green Haven salute as its unshakable centerpiece, casting a defiant shadow over Hortense Hightower's crumbling empire. She'd lost the HOA battle, the city shrugged off her complaints, and the neighborhood had all but crowned me the patron saint of privet. But Hortense was a weed with deep roots, sprouting new schemes faster than I could trim them. After the toilet paper fiasco, she tried stealthier sabotage. Weed killer spritzed on the hedge's base one night, caught on my cameras as she skulked in a dark hoodie. It didn't take. Edward's pruning had left the privet tough as nails, and I hosed it off with a smirk. She upped the ante with noise complaints, claiming the salute's lights disturbed the peace. Cops came, saw the glowing finger, chuckled, and left. Her desperation was palpable, her once iron grip slipping as neighbors openly cheered my rebellion. The hedge wasn't just a prank now. It was a symbol, a leafy flag for anyone tired of her beige dictatorship. I leaned into it, turning the salute into a full-blown spectacle. The spotlights got brighter, synced to a timer that flicked on just as Hortense's curtains twitched. The bird bath became a bird condo, feeders, a small fountain, a chorus of chirps to serenade her mornings. Hedge Appreciation Day morphed into a weekly ritual. Neighbors brought lawn chairs, snacks, even a guitar one time, strumming protest tunes while kids raced around the platform. Ticket sales spiked. Tourists trickled in, snapping selfies with the famous finger hedge, and I donated the cash to a local wildlife fund, ironic given Hortense's pest rants. The news segment aired, painting me as the quirky hero and her as the uptight villain. Clips of her porch rants went viral, dubbed Hedge Lady Loses It. She retaliated with a smear campaign, flyers stuffed in mailboxes, calling the hedge a moral blight. But they ended up as coasters at our next gathering. Her own board started dodging her calls, whispers of a coup brewing among the gnome-like members. The neighborhood shifted under the salute's glow. Folks who'd once mowed in silence now waved, swapped stories, let their own yards breathe a little wilder. The teen down the street painted his fence a loud orange. Hortense fumed, but no one backed her. Mr. Prickly, her loyal drone, stopped showing up entirely, rumors saying he'd quit after the art critic's stunt. The hedge had cracked Green Haven Glades open, not into chaos, but community. I'd catch old-timers grinning at it, kids sketching it in chalk on driveways, and think, this is bigger than me. It was about pushing back, sure, but also about what grew in the space left behind. Laughter, connection, a little chaos in the best way. Hortense's meltdowns fed the fire. One night my cameras caught her hurling a garden gnome at the hedge, missed by a mile, shattered on her own lawn. I sent her the footage with a note, "Careful, that's littering." Sipping lemonade in my hammock, I'd watch the salute gleam, its silhouette a quiet triumph. It wasn't just about Hortense anymore. It was about us, the neighbors who'd found a pulse in this beige box of a place. She could rage all she wanted. The hedge stood firm, roots deep, a middle finger to her rules and a nod to something freer. Sam Miller, hedge sculptor by accident, was winning, not just the war, but the soul of Green Haven Glades. The fight wasn't over, but the tide had turned, and I'd snipped my way to something unstoppable. The Green Haven salute had rooted itself deep in the neighborhood's psyche, a leafy rebel that Hortense Heitwer couldn't uproot no matter how hard she flailed. Her latest stunts, weed killer, noise complaints, the gnome-throwing tantrum, only dug her hole deeper, each flop chipping away at her once unshakable reign. The HOA board, now a fractured mess, started holding secret meetings without her, murmurs of enough's enough floating back to me via the grapevine. Neighbors who'd once ducked her gaze now smirked openly. Her flyers were trash before they hit the ground, and her rants, caught on my ever-present cameras, became late-night comedy fodder at our hedge gatherings. The salute wasn't just a hedge anymore. It was a rallying cry, a green middle finger that turned her control-freak kingdom into a punchline. She'd lost the plot, and I, Sam Miller, was riding the wave of her unraveling with a grin and a pair of shears. I doubled down, making the hedge a full-on institution. The spotlights got a color upgrade, red, white, and blue for the 4th, a cheeky nod to my free speech defense. The bird bath evolved into a mini ecosystem, seed trays, a bubbling pump, a squirrel feeder just to twist the knife, and the birdsong became a dawn chorus Hortense couldn't escape. The viewing platform sprouted a guest book. Entries ranged from best hedge ever to screw the HOA, penned by kids and grannies alike. Hedge Appreciation Day went monthly, barbecues, live music, a topiary trivia game where the prize was a salute-shaped cookie. Tourists kept coming, locals too, and I funneled the ticket cash into a Green Haven Wildlife Fund. Plastering the name on a sign by the hedge, Hortense's pests now had a legacy. The news circled back, dubbing it the hedge that broke the HOA, with clips of her porch meltdowns racking up views. She tried a last-ditch boycott, urging neighbors to shun me, but it backfired. Folks brought me beer instead, toasting the salute's glow. The shift in Green Haven Glades was tectonic. Fences went unpainted, lawns grew shaggy, and a guy 3 streets over planted a hedge shaped like a peace sign. Hortense's uniform aesthetic was toast. The board, sensing the wind, floated a truce. Rewrite the rules, ditch the height caps, let yards live. I pushed it at the next meeting, calm but firm. This isn't about chaos, it's about choice. The salute stays, but let's kill the petty stuff. They nodded, Hortense absent. Rumor said she'd locked herself in, blinds down, stewing. Mr. Prickly's replacement, a nervous newbie, didn't dare challenge me. The neighborhood hummed with a new vibe, messy, alive hours. Kids raced past the hedge daily, shouting, "High finger!" Old-timers swapped war stories of their own HOA run-ins. The salute had cracked the beige shell, letting something real spill out. Community, not conformity, and I'd snipped the first cut. Rocking in my hammock, lemonade sweating in my hand, I'd watch the hedge glow against the dusk, its silhouette a quiet giant. It still held my fight, my stand against Hortense's tyranny, but now it held more. A neighborhood reborn, a middle finger to rules that choked, a nod to the wild streak we'd all buried too long. She could sulk in her beige bunker, the salute stood taller, its roots in us all. Sam Miller, hedge warrior by chance, had turned a prank into a promise of freedom, of fight, of a green haven glades that finally lived up to its name, one defiant leaf at a time. Fall settled over Green Haven glades, tinting the leaves gold and the air crisp, but the Green Haven salute stood evergreen, a defiant sentinel in my yard that Hortense Heightwer couldn't topple. Her war had fizzled into a string of flops, weed killer washed away, complaints ignored, her gnome missile a laughable miss. And now she'd retreated, blinds shut, a ghost in her own beige castle. The HOA board, purged of her loyalists in a quiet coup, rewrote the rules under my nudge. No more height caps, no shape bands, just a loose, keep-it-safe clause that let the salute and every quirky yard breathe free. Neighbors took the cue. A cactus garden sprouted 2 doors down, a flamingo-pink shed popped up across the way, and the peace sign hedge guy added a dove. Hortense's uniform aesthetic was a memory, replaced by a patchwork of personality that somehow worked. The hedge wasn't just my win. It was ours. A middle finger to her reign that flipped the whole place into something alive. Salute's orbit grew. The spotlights shifted seasonally, orange for Halloween, twinkling white for winter, drawing eyes and ooze from blocks away. The birdbath turned into a wildlife hub, squirrels darted, finches flocked, and a stray cat napped by the bird's welcome sign daring Hortense to peek. The platform's guest book filled with scribbles, legendary. Hedge King and Hedge Appreciation Day became a fixture with potlucks, a kitty art contest guessed the theme, and a playlist heavy on rebel anthems. Tourists rolled through steady. I upped the ticket price, funneling cash to the Wildlife Fund, now sponsoring a community garden. Hortense's pests were greening the glades. The news looped back, calling it the hedge that freed a neighborhood, her viral rants now a meme. Hedge lady versus sanity. My cameras caught her last stand, tossing a for sale sign on her lawn, yanking it back an hour later, defeated. She was done, and the salute glowed brighter for it. Green Haven Glades wasn't beige anymore. Lawns shagged out, porches sagged with quirky decor, and folks lingered to chat about the hedge, the weather, anything. The teen with the orange fence started a car club, the old-timer with the dove hedge hosted poker nights. The board, sans Prickly's ghost, turned practical, fixing potholes, not policing shrubs, and I stepped back, my rebel stint done. The salute had sparked it all, a snip that cut through years of control, letting us grow wild together. Kids still yelled finger, racing by, parents laughed, nodding my way. It was messy, loud, real, a neighborhood, not a showroom. Hortense stayed, holed up, blinds tight, but whispers said she'd eyed a condo downtown, no HOA to rule there, a fitting end. I'd won the war, but the prize was bigger, a place that felt like us, not her. In my hammock, lemonade in hand, I'd watch the salute catch the sunset, its silhouette sharp against the sky. It still held my fight, my screw you to Hortense, but now it held our story, a stand that broke the mold, a hedge that built a home. The rumble of life around it, kids, birds, chatter, echoed louder than her gavel ever did. Sam Miller, topiary renegade, had turned a prank into a pulse, a middle finger into a handshake. The glades lived up to its name at last, green and free, and the salute stood tall, not just mine, but ours, a leafy proof that defiance could bloom into something damn near beautiful. Winter draped Green Haven glades in a thin frost, but the Green Haven salute stood unfazed. Its privet leaves a stubborn green against the gray. Hortense Heightwer's war was a faded echo. She'd vanished into her beige bunker, blinds sealed, the for sale sign a fleeting tantrum before she slunk back into silence. The HOA board, reborn without her, cemented the new rules. No petty hedge laws, just freedom with a side of common sense. The neighborhood bloomed wild. Cactus gardens, neon sheds, a gnome army 3 yards over, and the salute presided over it all, a leafy king that toppled a tyrant. My fight had sparked a revolution, but it wasn't mine alone anymore. It was the Glades, a middle finger that flipped us into a messy, vibrant us. Hortense's reign was dead, and the hedge was our victory flag, waving tall for every rebel who'd chafed under her thumb. The salute's glow never dimmed. Spotlights danced, red and green for the holidays, a soft gold into spring, turning it into a year-round beacon. The birdbath froze, then thawed, hosting a parade of wings and paws. The bird's welcome sign got a companion. Squirrels, too. The platform's guestbook bulged, pages of Hedge Forever and doodles from kids who'd made it their mascot. Hedge Appreciation Day rolled on, snowball fights in December, Easter egg hunts come April, drawing crowds with cider, then iced tea, the wildlife fund swelling with every ticket. The news named it the hedge that saved suburbia. Hortense's meme rants a relic laughed at over beers. Her house stayed dark, rumors swirling she'd fled to that HOA-free condo downtown, a poetic exit for a control freak with no kingdom left. The Glades didn't miss her. We'd found our stride, a rhythm of quirks and chatter that drowned her silence. The neighborhood was ours now, unshackled. Lawns grew shaggy or stayed, clipped by choice, not decree. Porches sagged with wind chimes and odd art. The car club roared to life, the poker nights spilled onto patios, and the peace sign hedge guy added a heart. Hortense's uncivilized was our badge of honor. The board fixed streetlights, not souls, and I faded to the sidelines, my rebel crown passed to the collective. The salute stood as our anchor, a snip that cut the chains, letting us sprawl into a community that breathed, loud, rough, real. Kids still hollered finger, racing by, parents grinned, tossing me a wave. It wasn't perfect, but it was home, a green haven Glades that finally matched its name, green and free, not beige and bound. The hedge had done that, my defiance, their embrace, a middle finger that built a handshake. Rocking in my hammock, lemonade cold against my palm, I'd watch the salute catch the light. Dusk, dawn, didn't matter. It held my stand, my take that to Hortense, but now it held more, our fight, our win, our roots. The hum of life, birds, laughter, engines, wrapped it tighter than her rules ever could. Sam Miller, hedge sculptor by fluke, had turned a prank into a promise, a snip into a seed. The Glades thrived, wild and true, and the salute gleamed. Not just mine, but ours, proof that defiance could grow into something fierce and fine. It wasn't about her anymore. It was about us. A neighborhood that stood tall, leaf by leaf, because I dared to flip the script, and we'd all dared to let it bloom.